beautiful friends. Thank you for joining for the third class in our Winter Yin series. I hope that winter has been treating you well and this cold snap has not been causing too much disturbance. Um, Tonight's class is going to focus a lot on our spinal mobility, on our spinal flexion. Um, what you will want to have, you can't see it because I'm sitting on it, is a nice blanket or pillow that you can use. We'll need it as a prop in some of the later poses. For now, go ahead and get in a comfortable seated position. Sitting up on your cushion or a blanket folded is always an option, just to get a little more space in your hips. And as we always do, I invite you to begin by closing your eyes and bringing your attention to your breath, to your body, to this moment in time. Will never happen again exactly as it is. So perhaps for the first time today, let your brain get quiet and bring your focus to just one thing, and let that one thing be your breath. The sensation of it moving through your nose, into your lungs, the sensation of your ribs expanding to make space for your lungs to fill, of the contraction that forces the air back out. And we are not making any adjustments, any corrections. We're not judging ourselves for breathing, how we're breathing. Right now, we're just being aware, bringing our focus to the actual process of breathing that happens throughout the day without any of our conscious effort. In this place of stillness, I'll share a quick quote with you about our spines from Socrates. If you would seek health, look first to the spine. It is very literally at the center of our personal existence. And it is so necessary to our ability to hold ourselves up, to move the way we want. And yet, like our breath, sometimes we kind of forget about it. We often are maybe more aware of needing to strengthen or gain flexibility in our extremities. But our spine is just as needing of that love and flexibility and strength as we give our other limbs or give our limbs. So with all of that in mind, and with your mind quieter than perhaps it's been all day, I invite you to think of a intention related perhaps to this central column of our existence. Perhaps it's, I'll be more mindful of the way my spine is being held when I sit and stand and move throughout the day. Or maybe it's a little bit more esoteric and being aware of that central core that is our truth of ourself, and how we honor our strength and flexibility in that way. And when you found that intention, repeat it to yourself silently one more time. Go ahead and open your eyes. We are going to do a few rounds of some breath work, sort of in the vein of our spine awareness. We're going to do a 3-part breath. So the first part will be bringing our breath down into our low bellies and feeling that expansiveness. The next breath will be in our midsection, feeling our ribs spread apart to make that space. Perhaps our stomach right around here moves forward a little bit as well. Maybe our back opens up. And then the final tip of breath comes into the top of our lungs, where oftentimes when we're stressed, perhaps when we talk about breathing more shallowly, that is usually being brought into just this part of our lungs up here where we're breathing. And you can tell that that's happening because you see your chest rise and fall as opposed to your belly. So bring one hand, whichever hand you prefer, to your belly, right around where your belly button is, and the other hand to your heart. And that will help us get a read on where our movement is as we breathe. So I'll guide you through a few. Everyone to take a normal breath in and go ahead and release it completely until you feel like you've squeezed every last drop of air out of your entire body. And when you have, you're going to inhale quickly into your low belly, inhale quickly into your midsection, inhale quickly into your upper lungs and hold. Exhale from your lungs at the top through your ribs and down into your belly. Inhale, low belly. Inhale, midsection, upper lungs. Exhale from the top all the way down. This time we're going to actively lengthen the exhale. So go ahead and inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale, 1, 2, 3. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Remember, on that exhale, the breath is leaving in the opposite way it came in. So it comes in base, middle, top, and the exhale releases from the top, middle, and then down. Do that a few times at your own pace. At any point, you're welcome to return your hands to your knees. Go ahead and return your breath to its normal cadence. And go ahead and float your eyes open. We are going to stay seated and begin with a little bit of spinal mobility right from here. So we're going to start with a little bit of a seated cat-cow. And so we're going to inhale and our heart leads forward, moving from our hips. And exhale, we round our spines back, tuck our tailbones under, shoulders can come up. Inhale, flow forward. You can let that movement really roll up your spine so you're leading with your heart. Exhale, and we come back, rounding our backs. You can even rock back on your hips a little, really exaggerate the movement. Inhale, forward. Exhale, back. Inhale, forward. Exhale, back. Inhale and exhale. Inhale yourself back to a neutral seated position. We'll do a little bit of some side bends next. So go ahead and inhale your arms up overhead. Exhale, left hand comes down to the mat, right hand follows along. Get a nice side bend. Inhale, come back up, and hands float down. Exhale. Inhale, arms back up overhead. Exhale, right hand down to the mat. Left hand follows to tip to the side. Inhale here. Exhale. Inhale brings us back up. And exhale, arms back down to the side. One more on each side. So inhale, arms up. Exhale, left hand to the mat, right hand follows. Inhale here. Exhale. And our next inhale pulls us back up to center. Arms float down on the exhale. Inhale, arms back up overhead. Exhale, drop right arm to the ground, left hand follows. Inhale in the side bend. Really feel that nice stretch along your side ribs. Exhale. Inhale brings us back up to center and arms float back down to side. We're going to keep with that up and down movement. We're going to get a little twisting in. So our spine moves in sort of three primary ways. So we've got the forward and backward movement that we did in our cat and cow. We've got our side to side movement like we just did. And then the last one is that twisting rotation movement. So we're going to do that now. All right, so we're going to inhale our arms up overhead. And as we exhale, we're going to turn towards the right, letting our arms float down. Our right hand comes back behind. Left hand can rest on or even use that knee to get a little bit more of a twist. Remember, we're being kind to ourselves. We're not going for our deepest twist here, but it might help just to get a little bit closer to that edge point with a little extra tension there. Really take some nice deep breaths in here while we're in this twist. Try and make sure your shoulders are dropped down away from your ears. And on your next inhale, we are going to sweep our arms up overhead and come back to center. We're going to exhale as we twist to the left. Left hand comes down behind us, right hand to left knee. Shoulders are dropped away from our ears. For a little extra bonus twist, your neck can be twisted so that you are looking over your back shoulder. If that's a little too much, you can just let your neck, your head be in a neutral position, looking to the what the forward direction would be based on where your shoulders are, if that makes any sense. And take some deep breaths here. Really enjoy the sensation of that twist. And on your next inhale, arms float up as our torso returns to center. We'll go one more on each side. Exhale as we twist. Right arm back to the back. Left hand to right knee. Actively bring your shoulders down away from your ears. Enjoy those deep breaths. And inhale, arms sweep overhead, return to center. Exhale, we rotate to the left. Left hand drops behind, right hand to left knee. Shoulders away from our ears. And we breathe. Inhale, arms sweep back up. We return to center. And this time as we exhale, we stay in our center position and just let our arms float back down. All right, one more pose seated here just to get a little bit more of a spine opening and a little chest opening. I'm going to turn to the side so you can see me more clearly. but we're going to stay in our easy seated position. And we're going to bring our hands behind us with our fingertips pointing towards our hips. You can lean back into it, but the goal here is to really drop your shoulders away from your ears and get a nice deeper back bend, a nice stretch opening across your shoulders, across the pectoral muscles, and up the backs of those arms, maybe a little bit into your hands and wrists from all that typing and phone holding. You can let your head drop back and your chin meets the sky. And we won't be here too long, but try and enjoy some nice deep breaths. Beautiful. Inhale, walk yourself back up to a neutral seated position and join me on our hands and knees for some regular traditional cat and cows to keep that spine movement going. So, very much like I mentioned in our seated version, really think this time as we do our cat and cows about the movement being like a wave that goes up and down your spine, so that they're not, as we inhale and exhale, distinct separate movements, but one fluid movement just kind of rolling up and down your spine. So get your knees to a nice width at your hip distance. So they're dropped down right beneath your hips. Toes can be curled under or feet can be flat on the ground. Wrists should be dropped down right under our shoulders. You can, if your arms are a little tight or your hands are a little, wrists are a little sore, it might help to sort of rotate your hands outward a little bit more instead of the classic straight up and down in front of you. All right, so we got ourselves nice and planted. Beautiful. Just really get into that neutral position, engage your core. And then from here, as we inhale, our bellies and chests drop, our hearts shine forward. And we exhale and bring our spines up towards the sky. Inhale, drop forward. Exhale. And to really encourage that fluid movement, I'm going to let you go at your own breath pace. Really think about yourself as if you were a wave in the ocean. Each inhale and exhale, unfurling the wave movement up and down your spine. Beautiful. In these last few moments, go ahead and take some more free form movement, remembering that fluidity of our spine, maybe flow a little, wiggle side to side. Maybe we look back over our shoulder and see if we could see our hip side to side. Bring a little play into it, whatever feels good. Maybe some rotations, bring it back the other way. Maybe get some circles in our wrists and our knees as well. Just enjoy that, whatever fluidity your spine has to offer you here. All right, and from here, my loves, we're going to come into melting heart. So staying on our knees, we're going to walk our hands forward, keeping our hips up in the air and bringing our foreheads down to the mat. Really rest on your forearms in particular. Put a lot of that pressure into that span between your elbow and your wrist. And that will really help keep you from sinking too far into the pose. Then we breathe. This one's not an easy one, so we're going to come out of it now. Go ahead and walk your hands back. And we're going to take a nice, juicy, long child's pose. So from here, go ahead and let your knees come a little bit wider apart to make plenty of room for yourself. You might want to get your blanket or cushion and lay that in between your knees so that your forehead has somewhere nice to rest. And then we're going to go ahead, walk ourselves forward. Forehead comes back down to the mat. And here you can bring your arms back behind you if that doesn't create too much uncomfortable pressure on your neck and forehead. Or you can move your hands out in front of you. The goal for tonight's child's pose is to really enjoy the rounded back and the opening across our hips and shoulders, and to counter all of those back bends that we've been doing. We're still in our child's pose. Don't worry, no one left. It's always funny when you're doing a virtual yoga class like this and you hold a pose you can't see the screen from very well. And I wonder, did I miss something? Did the class end while I was just sitting here? No worries. And promise I'll let you know when we're coming out of it. In the meantime, just really enjoy the sensation of breath moving up and down your spine in this different position than we are typically in our day. All right, beautiful friends. As lovely as it is to be here, go ahead and inhale, walk yourself back and up to a seated, to a kneeling position. If you brought your cushion in, go ahead and get it out of the way. And we're going to do a rare pose that takes us off the mat a little bit. We're going to come into a dolphin pose, which is sort of like a downward dog pose, but on our forearms. And I'll quickly demonstrate it to you, and then I'll come back to where we are and I'll walk you into it with verbal cues as well. But so that you can see what we're looking for the shape to be like, we're going to come onto our forearms and then curl our toes, lift our lift our hips back and up. All right, so we're in a nice kneeling pose. From here, we're going to bend back forward as if we were coming back into child's pose or our melting heart, and walk our hands a little bit further forward. Plant our forearms really comfortably with our elbows shoulder width apart, and then curl your toes and lift your hips up into the sky. Your heels may or may not be anywhere near the ground beneath them. That's okay. Really think, pardon me, it's not that easy to speak upside down. Really think about the weight being planted evenly between your elbow and your wrist on your forearms, and then all across your feet behind all of your toes. So the whole ball of the foot portion is really evenly pressed into the ground. Try not to lock your knees, but do aim for straight legs. Bent legs like this might be where you're at. And then from there, see if you can kind of push your shoulders back so that you get a nice opening stretch across them. We won't be here for too long either, I promise, my friends. Just a few breaths. And exhale, bring your knees back down to the mat and walk yourself back and up into a kneeling pose again. Okay, from here, let's come onto our bellies for another lovely back bend, our friend Sphinx pose. And from here, we're going to get our hips nice and heavily, evenly weighted into the mat beneath us. Take a breath there. Bring your shoulders, or your elbows, to shoulder width and sort of directly under your shoulder. Forearms again planted on the ground in front of us. Weight evenly pressed across those forearms. So not actually that much weight in our pressure in our hands. You could kind of lift them up and move them around if you needed to. That weight is really being pressed into our forearms here. And as we sort of have that pressure in our forearms, we can kind of use it to imagine if you could kind of pull your whole body forward, but you're not trying to move. So you want to really use that movement, imagined movement, if you will, to sort of open up across our chest and deepen that upper back bend. If this is uncomfortable, we talk about our edge here. So this is not our deepest or our most strenuous back bend here. If this is not feeling great, you can take a much, much smaller one where your ribs and shoulders are not trying to be back up off of the floor as much. If you have the movement, though, I will tell you that really activating your legs behind you, not just kind of forgetting about them, really activating them behind you, pressing them into the floor is actually going to help create some additional space to open up into the back bend. And as usual in our yin classes, which has not been very yin so far, but we are going to find that edge. Maybe it's a little further down to the mat. Maybe it's deeper back bend today. Wherever it is, once we find it, we get still and we return to our breath and we give it some time. All right, my friends, just a couple more rounds of breath here. On your next exhale, go ahead and let your elbows come wide, your hands in front of your face, and just drop your forehead onto your hands for a quick reset. This is technically still a little bit of a back bend, but it's much less of a back bend than we were just doing. So it's a nice way to just let your spine kind of take a breath, if you will, before we move into our next pose. Beautiful. We're gonna roll over now onto our backs. So go ahead and get yourself adjusted because we'll be on our backs now for the remainder of the class. Okay, so now that we are all situated on our mats, on our backs, we're going to come into a knees to chest pose. So it's like giving yourself a nice hug for a minute or two. And this is, again, kind of like our child's pose, a nice counterbalance to all of the back bends that we've been doing. So go ahead and inhale and then exhale, bring your knees in to your chest. You have a few options here. You can either bring your hands to sort of in between your knees and from there kind of gently hug your knees in. If you have the flexibility, you can actually bring your hands together underneath, but that's not accessible for me. So not how I'll be demonstrating tonight. And then the other option, of course, is that you can rest your hands on the tops of your knees and from there, sort of gently pull them in towards yourself as well. I'm going to go with this first option here, but get wherever feels comfortable to you. It's okay if your knees come a little wider, if that's more accessible as well. Um, the important things here are that your shoulders are scooched back down your back and away from your ears, and that you are not hunching them forward, but relaxing them back into the mat. And really being heavy and evenly weighted in both of your hips, even though they're probably curling, your tailbone's probably curling up a little bit away from the floor. We still want to make sure that we're not like on one side or twisted up, but that we're really nicely and evenly planted. Feels kind of nice to hug yourself sometimes. We probably don't give ourselves enough love during the day anyway. I mean, this whole class is usually is like a hug to yourself, but this time we're taking it pretty literally. I find that these poses are a really nice lesson in being curious about our bodies and also kind, because at first glance, maybe in those first few seconds in a pose like this, it doesn't maybe seem that hard. You're like, Rachel, really? This is yoga? But the longer we spend in these poses, the more we start to notice that, wow, actually it's really taking a good amount of core stability to keep my legs in this position, even though my hands are helping. Or wow, I would never have even been aware that my back was that tight now that it's getting to sort of stretch out in a new way. And all of these sort of micro adjustments and awarenesses of places where our body is doing really well or where it's maybe gotten a little sticky or crunchy. All of these are the real sort of juice, if you will, of a yin yoga class. We don't have to be in our most extreme headstand to really get into and be aware of our bodies. Mm. And we'll take a few more rounds of breath here because it's so lovely. Go ahead and exhale, release the hold on your knees and let your feet come back down to the mat. We are going into our banana asana. So let your feet come out straight on the mat. So your legs are straight in front, out in front of you, if you will. And bring your left foot to the outside edge of your mat. And then cross your right foot over the top of it. And you're already going to start to feel how your legs are shifting over towards the left. Now, with the mental effort, at least, to think about keeping your hips where they are, we're going to also bring our left hand up and to the outside of our mat, and our right hand crosses to meet it. I like to grab my right hand with my right wrist with my left hand to just kind of help it stay in place. And the goal is to keep that on or as close to the floor as possible. And now the top half of us is sort of gently curved towards the left as well. We drop our shoulders actively back and away from our ears. And in this banana pose, we find stillness and our breath. And like we were discussing at the beginning of the class, the sort of side to side motion of our spines is often one of the ones that we forget about the most. And it doesn't give us the greatest sort of flexibility necessarily, the greatest range of motion on a side to side plane, but it's still very important. And it feels really nice to get this side stretch and open up all along the outside of your right leg and hip, in that space between our right hip and the bottom of our right side ribs, all along the edge of our arm. We feel how the breath opens up the space between your ribs. And when you're ready, go ahead, exhale, release the hold on your right wrist. Let yourself come back into a sort of neutral center place. Take a breath or two, and then we're gonna repeat it on the other side. So bring your right foot to the edge, outside edge of your mat. Cross that left foot over. One half of the banana is in effect. Arms up overhead. Right arm comes to the edge of our mat. Left over, right hand grasps left wrist. Bring everything back down to the ground as much as you can. Really shrug your shoulders down away from your ears. Think about staying heavy and rooted in that hip area in the middle of our body, sort of pivot point, if you will, of our banana. And then find stillness and come to your breath. Notice how perhaps the sensations are different on this side than they are on the other. In fact, I suspect they most likely do feel different on each side. We use both sides of our bodies differently throughout the day. And there's no judgment about it. There's no sort of negative self-talk. Oh gosh, I could do this on the other side, no problem. It purely is the reality of how we move in the world. It would be odd if our two sides didn't experience these poses differently because, like I said, we use them differently all throughout our day. We can accept lovingly the differences without judgment and think of them as opportunities to give ourselves love and kindness and explore the pose or the movement in a new way that maybe we hadn't considered in doing it on our other side. The breath feels so nice, opening our ribs up, getting some space between our ribs, getting that intercostal muscles a nice stretch. They don't get a whole lot of, they do a lot of work keeping us breathing all day, but they don't always get a whole lot of love and affection. We'll be here for a few more rounds of breath. If you happen to have your eyes open and you ever catch me moving, I promise it's not just because I get to fidget and you don't. It's just I'm keeping an eye on the time to make sure that we don't run too long or stay in the pose any longer on one side than the other. It's definitely not a double standard, I promise. The stillness is beautiful. All right, when you're ready, go ahead, exhale, release your left side and come to a nice, neutral, even space on your mat. We're going to come into a reclining twist. So bring your feet to the mat and your knees up. Go ahead and bump your hips over to the left a little bit. And then drop your knees to the right side. If you'd like, if you have your blanket or cushion handy, this would actually be a really nice time to use it. And that just helps put it right where your knees are going to go, just like that. And that's going to just bring the floor a little bit closer to you. It's going to let your knees relax into the twist in a way that they wouldn't if they were struggling to find the floor, and really allow us to focus on the spinal twist itself here. So knees are down to the right side. Right hand can be used to sort of help create that leverage. And then we open, twist across our midsection. Left hand comes out behind us. The goal is that shoulder and arm are on the floor. But if they cannot be there, that is A-okay. We get into whatever version of this pose is not causing us pain, but is bringing us to the edge of our comfort zone, if you will. And having this cushion on the right side here, potentially even more if you needed to be in less of a twist, then adding even more cushioning under your knees is going to be a great way to do that, and also maybe help your left shoulder access the floor. So from here, again, you can always get a little extra spiciness by turning your head back to look over your left hand, or not if you don't need any more spiciness than this already is. Wherever you found your edge, find that stillness and come to your breath. Couple more rounds of breath. Beautiful. Inhale your knees back up to center. Adjust yourself into neutral. If you had your cushion, go ahead, take a moment now and bring it to the other side of your mat. And pressing into your feet, lift your hips and bump them over to the right a little bit. And then bring your knees up and let them fall over to the left side. We unfurl across to the right this time. Arm out in a T sort of shape. If the other arm was coming out behind us, it would be a T. But your left hand can be resting on your knee as well to help deepen the twist slightly. Again, remembering that we're not pushing or straining or striving. This should not be painful. It should, however, be just at the outer limit of what is maybe comfortable. And there's a difference between discomfort that is helping us test and stretch our boundaries in a healthy way, and pain, which is absolutely not what we want because it signals that we may already be injured or that we are on the edge of injuring ourselves. Wherever that edge is, we find that stillness and we come to our breath. For extra spiciness, you can be looking back over your right arm this time, or not. All right, beautiful friends, go ahead and inhale your knees back up to center. Feet drop down to the mat. We straighten our spines back out, and we're gonna take that blanket or cushion that we just had. We're gonna press into our feet. We're gonna lift our hips up, and we're gonna shift that blanket or cushion under our hips so that they are a little elevated. If you want, blanket over again one more time, get a little more height. If you've got blocks, this would be a great place to grab one of those if they're accessible as well. Again, not our deepest bridge here. Our hips be heavy into our cushion beneath us. And we still want to engage our legs. So we're pressing our feet into the floor as if we were really pushing ourselves all the way up. And we're thinking about squeezing our legs together, even though we're keeping them in a parallel position, but as if we could do both of those things at the same time, squeeze them together and keep them apart. And that's just going to really help engage our core in a nice way. So even though we're letting the prop, the cushion, kind of help us and support us, we still want to get the benefit of that core engagement and making sure that we're protecting our spine by keeping our legs nice and engaged in this pose. That being said, our upper half doesn't need to be efforting really at all, and really to enjoy some of the other benefits to open across the chest. We actually want to really and then let them relax down. And really, your arms can come out to the side, wherever feels good, to make sure that your shoulders have the space to be relaxed down into the mat. Legs are engaged, hips are heavy into our support, shoulders are relaxed, heavy into the mat, collarbones, our hearts are open, and we breathe. Just a few more rounds here. Beautiful. On your next inhale, go ahead and engage everything, lift up a little bit so that you can shift that blanket or prop out of the way. Exhale as you roll down each vertebrae until your hips hit the floor, or gently caress the floor, if you will. Nothing so brutal as hitting in this class. Let your feet slide out, out, out. And we are going to comfortably and grace and love enter our final resting Shavasana. Shoulders stay relaxed and down, our backs away from our ears. Hips grow heavy into the mat. Legs are out straight, feet are relaxed. Arms are 6 to 8 inches away from our bodies, palms to the sky. Eyes are closed. And we find stillness. And in this place of stillness, we bring our attention back to our breath. And just like at the start of class, there's no effort to change our breath, not trying to fit it into a pattern, make any changes, give ourselves any grief or judgment for how it feels or doesn't. But we maybe bring some curiosity, some awareness to how our breath might feel different moving in our bodies now than it did at the start of class. Maybe a little more awareness to the ebb and flow of the movement of our breath up and down our spines. Let every part of you get heavy and relax into the ground. In your mind's eye, visualize your spine, this beautiful piece of equipment that keeps us stable, centered. With every inhale, Imagine all of the beautiful oxygen and blood flow and nutrients coursing throughout your body, and every piece of it stemming from that central column, your spine. All of our nerves, everything comes back in to that spine, spinal column in our nervous system, not in our circulatory system necessarily. Breathe space into the space between each vertebrae, up and down along your spine. Feel all of those attachments and tiny places around your spine relax. Be at peace. Our spine works to hold us up all day. And give it a few minutes here to rest. Slowly bring your awareness back to this space and time. Bring some movement into your toes, to your fingers. And when you're ready, go ahead and roll onto your right or left side, whichever feels right. Correct. And gently find your way up into a seated position. If they open in that process, just gently let your eyes come back to closed for one moment longer. And take one final breath, one final moment to really thank yourself for showing up tonight. Thank you for coming. I appreciate each and every one of you. I hope that you have a beautiful rest of your evening or day, wherever your life journey takes you after you leave the mat. Namaste.